Hey everybody, Pete Nelson here. You may recognize me from Treehouse Masters that played on Animal Planet for so long. Well, I'm here at Treehouse Point, which is our bed and breakfast in Fall City, Washington, and today I want to give you a tour of the Burl. Just the coolest treehouse. We're going to walk across the bridge and I'll show it to you right now. Come with me. River this way. Okay, so here we go. We've got two trees here. Only one is supporting it. That's the tree on the right. Tree on the left is a western hemlock. This tree was diseased, we noticed, so we actually have cut it just above where the tree house sits. Now it's a habitat tree. The tree house is not supported whatsoever. Hemlocks are trees that I don't generally use when I'm building tree houses. They tend to have diseases, issues around here, so we go for the Douglas fir. Look at this. This guy's a little more than 5 feet in diameter, ABH, that's at breast height, and it is a specimen tree, the biggest tree on this 4-acre property. So I just want to show you that the hardware we use to support these is heavy duty. It works. The trees respond beautifully to these big penetrations. Like here, this right here, it's maybe hard to see, it's so closely colored to the bark of the tree, but this is a 3-inch diameter metal, it's mild steel boss as we call it, that goes beyond this, goes another 6 inches deeper into the tree with an 1.75 inch kind of coarse thread that goes back a total of 9 inches into the tree. And out here, you've got a crazy amount of support ability. That is heavy limb, HL, 50,000 pounds before it breaks. Now, the engineers only give you a safety factor of 3 times, so we're actually only getting about 15 to 20,000 pounds for the engineer to do their work. But that's per connection. Okay, so I mean, look at this. Douglas fir. I hate to say it, but it's probably my favorite tree. I said it. Okay, and western red cedar, another favorite. But look at, I mean, it's so majestic and monstrous. So then more connections, 1, 2, 3 more tabs back here, heavy limbs. We share, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 more knee braces. So we share one of the tabs with 2 knee braces. But that does more than enough to support this treehouse. I mean, it's overkill. I'll just point out too, while we're here, that this plastic covering on this nodule is actually a grinder and a reservoir for the toilet. And that all comes in there, gets ground up, and then forced through a 2-inch pipe back to the septic system. So that's what that is. This little pipe here, it's fun to point out, this little clear, for condensation, this is for air conditioning. This treehouse has air conditioning. I find that quite incredible, but now they do these wonderful little mini splits that you see all over the place that really work so well, very efficient. And now with all this global warming, you can stay nice and cool in your treehouse. So a system like this works really well. I mean, they've been using them for years residentially, commercially too, I'm sure. Normally this would be in the ground though, and then the pipe, you only need a 2-inch pipe to go out. Doesn't have to be too deep in the ground either. I mean, you worry about freezing, but this is only being ejected when it's time to eject it. So the unique thing about this is that here it is hanging in the air. But it's a great solution. You know, if you're below where you need to be with your effluent, then it's gotta, you know, they always say stuff goes downhill, stuff. But in this case, you've got to send it uphill, and these are proven. They work wonderfully. They work, and that's the important thing, because you don't want to get in there if you don't have to. So now, this was the fantasy that I had now, oh boy, 10 years ago or more, of getting from the ground into this treehouse. Perfect kind of outcropping of rocks and dirt over here, and then stretches 40 feet to the tree itself. So the engineers helped me in this case with how to span that, and we're standing on a bridge that's got 2 steel stringers, about 16-inch deep I-beams that are fairly lightweight, but you know, it's got some bounce to it. And it works really well though. It's kind of exciting to span across to this beautiful tree. But let's go inside. I got to show you what this looks like. First of all, we say hello to the tree. Oh, I'm a tree hugger, but I'm also a user of wood, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. This is the hemlock that I was pointing out below, and you can see up top, we've got all these growths on it. It's a habitat tree now. It should stick around for a number of years and create good habitat for birds and bugs alike. But this, oh. Now here I have to point out too, it might be hard to see, but there's a platform, and then way up high, actually 144 feet up, is another platform. Getting up there is hairy, to say the least. We're not going to do that today because weirdly, the treehouse guy, I'm very respectful of heights. Okay, here we go. Ready for this? Ta-da! Oh, I love this room. Little writing desk. Critical to have a writing desk in your little house, or your tree house in this case. Western red cedar. This is it. Little space. I mean, look at it's 6.5 feet across. Really all the space you need. You know, 2 nice chairs that you can sit in and talk with your loved one, your kids, your parents, you know, just these places I think are meant for intimacy, you know. Really, there's no television in here. I don't have anything against televisions, but in a place like this, I think that they're so important to be able to connect with one another, or even just yourself, right? Quality time with my 3 favorite people, me, myself, and I. It's just meant for that sort of time together. And all these warm, old pieces of wood that just radiate warmth like this. So what do you need in a tree house, or for that matter, a tiny house? I think you need a desk so you can do your drawing or your writing or poetry. You need a place to sit like this. 2 places ideally, if you've got your best friend or your family member or your wife or husband or girlfriend, boyfriend. And then outside, you've got to have an outdoor space. Around here, you need a little coverage too from rain, because we get rain in the Northwest. Yeah, I mean, again, 3.5 feet. That might be 7.2 or so. It's just all you need, just a little covered space. When you're out in the Pacific Northwest, you know, it rains a lot, so I prefer to have a little covered space. But you absolutely have to have a little outdoor spot to breathe in all the oxygen pumping out of this beautiful forest. Vine maples in front of me. These are these lovely trees here. One of my favorite trees. You know, here I was talking about the Doug fir and the Western red cedar is my favorites. This is in the top 10. Look at the green bark and all these delicate little maple leaves. Beautiful. Beautiful. In fact, those trees are some of the oldest trees in this forest. We have an arborist that helps us here, and he's pointed out that the vine maples, only this big or so in diameter, might be the oldest trees in this whole forest. I mean, the Doug fir that we're in right now, I'm going to guess, as we all have, that it's probably a 350 or 400-year-old tree thereabout. So some of these vine maples are at least that old. Yeah. So this railing, this is a popular style that we've used quite a bit of, just branches. These are all cedar branches. And then, you know, code makes you build railings instead of at 36 inches, which is the old residential code. When you've got a commercial endeavor like this, you've got to go up to 42 inches. So we added this top not too long ago. It's hard sometimes to comply with building codes. That's an issue I know that the tiny home movement is dealing with a lot, and treehouse is the same thing, because trying to convince the powers that be that these are going to stay in the trees is quite a challenge. Now that said, we've done a lot of math, done a lot of testing, and we do have engineers that stamp the drawings now, and once that stamp is done, then pretty much across the board the building departments, at least in this country, will say, okay, if an engineer signs off on it, we're good. So that's good news. Okay, now, the next thing a treehouse needs, of course, is a place to lie down. And that's upstairs here, so let's go upstairs. I love the feeling in this little treehouse. Before we go up, there's a few things I'll point out. One is this great copper pipe, actually the black water from the toilet, which is telegraphed to show it's directly right here. That's where the toilet is upstairs. Another thing to point out is over here, this is the air conditioning. You know, in this time where things are heating up, even up here in the Northwest, we get some hot summers, and these little spaces are fabulous when they're cool. So we just installed this recently, and it's a real nice feature, I have to say. Okay, so now let's go upstairs. Follow me. True ladder here. A real ladder, a little handhold right there to get up into this little room. Very romantic. Just a queen size bed, some nice lighting, and a very important bathroom right in through here. And then lots of windows. So important, I think, in tree houses. Little houses too, but in tree houses you want to remember that you're up in the trees, so be sure to put a lot of windows in your tree house. Now for convenience, we have a very lovely room. Ta-da! We've got a flushing toilet. That's a luxury for a treehouse, I'd say. We've got a little sink that you can wash your hands. There is no shower per se, but there is a shower house here on the property that everybody can go to. You know, I just love these little spaces. They're just so intimate. The other thing that is fun to point out with this particular treehouse is, so we work with a number of really talented carpenters, and Bubba Smith works with us, and he was the one that really went the extra mile with the lumber that we were using and the materials. And when I look at the wall here, this is all wide. It's actually redwood, and it's extraordinary in its size. I mean, each of these pieces are about 3 feet wide, and with that, you know, they shrink and they grow depending on the atmosphere, whether it's damp or dry, and it sucks up when it's dry, and it expands a little bit when it's moist. So all these big panels that you see decorating the walls are installed in such a way that the nails are hidden. It's really kind of magic, but a little technical, but it's still, oh, I admire that work so much. Beautiful material. And of course, a little window. Screens, you know, we don't get a lot of bugs in the Northwest, but there are some, so we'll make sure that they stay out as much as we can. So this is the Burl, and it got its name because I was hoping with the design it would look like a burl on the side of a tree. You know, I love when the trees take center stage, as this beautiful big Douglas fir does, along with its hemlock, but that's where the name came from. It's part of a bed and breakfast, so in this case there isn't a kitchen that you can, you know, cook food on. Easily done, just like in tiny houses, you know, you can make room even in small spaces for a kitchen, galley style. You know, there's no shower, but we do have a shower house, separate bathhouse for everybody to use here. There's 6 tree houses at Treehouse Point, and everybody shares the shower house, so that works out pretty well, I would have to say. But if you wanted to put a shower in a treehouse, by all means, it's possible. Like the toilet you saw upstairs, you know, just another little bit of plumbing, and there's no reason that you can't enjoy all the luxuries of a real tiny home up in the trees. You know, it's fun to think back when I was designing this treehouse. It's always such a pleasure to just take that time to consider all the different things you could put in such a magnificent tree like this. And you know, this idea of creating a burl, something that would naturally be on the side of a big tree like this, was the driving factor of the design. Now, when you think about the things that you must have in a tree house that we've gone through, you know, place to sit, place to write something, place to lie down, a little outdoor space, well then those naturally become, you know, that would be the biggest burl I've ever seen. But I do love that time spent in the design phase, dreaming and imagining, you know, what do you really need in a space? What's the size that feels right and would be comfortable without feeling too cramped? But you know, you go into these big houses they're building these days and it just feels unnatural. And when you walk into an intimate space like this, these tiny homes, there's a feeling of warmth and comfort and shelter, right away. So I think that's what I like to imagine always is fitting into the trees in the right scale, getting all the things you need in there, not necessarily overdoing it. I mean, that's hard. I think of, I don't know, I love the way, in my mind, tree houses and music go together well, like live music. I'm a big live music fan, and I always tend to gravitate to the musicians that only play just enough notes, Neil Young's a good example of that. I don't know, just what do you really need? Do you need to go crazy, or can you just kind of reduce it to its most essential parts? And that's what I've tried to do here. I think having a small space like this really just adds to the quality of life, because you're forced outside a lot. I noticed that you're certainly not going to be cooped up in a small, tiny house all year long. You find yourself living outdoors a whole lot more. And I think that's a real healthy alternative. Another aspect in treehouse building, and I imagine it's the same with tiny house building, is sort of scavenging materials and scrounging them like we did when we were growing up. True today in building tree houses is I spend a lot of time sourcing materials. Craigslist is a great source, but being in this market for so long, I get people calling me saying, hey, there's an old house up in Monroe coming down, and we'll go and do some deconstruction. And in this case, the tree house here is clad with these enormous shingles. They're Western red cedar shingles. They'd been in a barn forever and ever. They were meant to re-roof the barn, and that just never happened. So I like thinking about the time that we went up, and that was also just north of Seattle where we found these. And you acquire this stuff, and it's so fun to be able to repurpose it, put it into use like this. And those things, they're actually 2 layers thick. They should last for a century or more. So fun to use, found, repurposed materials, and I think it's right in the spirit of treehouse building, or tiny house building for that matter. When I was growing up, I had this very treehouse, I'm sure something close to it in my mind. It was always, boy, I gravitated towards building, and I was fascinated by architecture and the way these houses were being built around where I was growing up, actually back in New Jersey of all places. But I loved design, architecture, and these same structures were in my head at that young age, but I would go in my backyard thinking I was going to pull off something like this and be just grievously disappointed every time. But still having fun. I mean, you learn a lot when you're an amateur out there trying to, swing for the fences, and that's what I was doing, and it was sure fun. But now with the tools and the experience, a little bit of skill, although a lot of that you can pick up right on the internet. If you're not accustomed to building something, a tree house or a tiny house is a great way to get started. So do a little research, but don't hold back. Get out there and make those childhood dreams really come true. These places are magic, and they continue to be magic. They're magic for the people that get to stay here. They come out of these trees, like I see them in the mornings, and they're just like, what happened? I've never slept so late in my life. It's true. So get out there, do it. Go out and do it. Hey, thanks for coming out today. It's a pleasure to tour you through the Burl at Treehouse Point. If you're ever in the Northwest and want to stay in a treehouse, by all means, look us up. It's busy. There's only 6 tree houses, but it sure is fun. So thanks for your time. Have a great day.